Hello viewers and welcome back to the East Manchester Experiment, and for the first time in this episode I'm really starting to think about what I can learn for the forthcoming series, because as I've mentioned before, this is not really the series in itself. This is an experiment, hence the title, just to kind of get me used to the kind of vagaries of this level and what it's going to be like when I take over my local club, or one of my local clubs, because QPR are actually closer to me, but one of my local clubs in level 11 in Football Manager 20. Obviously, the database for that isn't out yet, which is why I'm doing it on FM19 for the time being. And I know it will be a little different, but I do feel like any lessons I can learn from the mistakes I've made, particularly this season, but over the last couple of seasons, I think will be really valuable. I do feel like I've made mistakes this season. I have an idea about some of them, and I'll try and kind of give you some insight into that now, but not all of them. As you can see, my form recently has been dire. Been trying to play a couple of friendlies here and there just to try and snap myself out of it, but it hasn't really worked. And as you can see, if you take that out, it really doesn't look good. We've had 3 wins in 3.5 months, nearly 4 months actually, because it's only a week away from the 29th. So 3 wins in nearly 4 months, which clearly is not good enough at any level, let alone at this is the third league that we've tried with this team. So we are back for the Alsager Town game as I promised, but we're kind of here knowing that I think the title's pretty much gone. I mean, it's not completely gone. If we were to win both our games in hand, we're 7 points behind with 14 games to go, so it's not completely gone. But I do think it's going to be very hard from here, and certainly within the next couple of months, it could be a long way off. Realistically, I think I'm now thinking about building for next season, although as I mentioned, really my kind of thinking now is moved towards my new save and what I'm going to do then. That said, I will talk through a few of the things that have happened since the last save, because there have been a few changes in the squad. So you will notice Steve Loughlin went, which is no great loss. I don't think he wasn't doing much. I think he left more because he wasn't getting game time than anything else. But we've had a few players in. Stephen Ward was the first one. He is a central defender. I released him straight away. I'd totally forgotten about him. I can't remember why actually. It's gone. There must be a reason for that, but I can't remember why it was. He went almost immediately. Dominic Collins then came in, who was a bit more experienced, obviously a 30-year-old defender, which is unusual for this team. I actually bought him thinking I wanted to play centre back, but I actually realised that he wasn't really that suited to it. Although I look at it now and I wonder why I thought that actually, because I don't think. I mean, it's probably because of my assistants, and of course that's really stupid, because my assistants are rubbish. But in part, it was also partly because right back has probably been more of a problem for me than centre back, so that was part of my thinking. So he's there at the moment. Given that he's playing so badly, I might actually put him into the side. Morrison, as you can see, has improved. Wayne Cleaver, I still want to be a part of this side, but I think I might bring him out of the firing line for a little while at least. This is a slightly off the cuff. I wasn't really expecting to do this. I'm going to have Cameron Jones back in though. One thing I have realised, and this I could be wrong about this, but my feeling is, unless there is a very good reason, and actually for what I'm about to say, unless there's a very good reason not to, I think it's generally worth sticking with players unless there's a very good reason not to, because, and I think this is perhaps even more true in my first season when I was doing quite well. If your players are underperforming, it might not be because they're not good enough. It might be for all sorts of other reasons. Partly, of course, because they haven't played as much, and obviously team gelling is a big part of this. I think I'm perhaps underestimating how much of a part of this that is, and things like the tactical familiarity. You know, it says these ones are completely full. This one's not quite full, but I wonder perhaps if the fact that it's not quite full is a bit of a problem. The fact perhaps that he's not playing exactly the same position he's played all year might be a bit of a problem. Similarly for the strikers, they haven't been playing together every single game, and therefore the fact their tactical familiarity isn't as good as it could be is a bit of a problem. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean it's terrible, but maybe if I was to leave them play together consistently and not keep switching it around so much, then they could form a better partnership and both improve. So one thing I'm going to try and do between now and when it comes is just try where I can to be a little bit more faithful to my players, and if they don't perform, don't necessarily instantly think I'm going to write them off. So Dominic Collins, for example, I was thinking, he's had an awful start to his career with us, clearly, and I was thinking, let's get rid of him, let's try something else. But actually, on balance, I'm not so sure now. I think Morrison, for example, has had a good start. Looks to me like he's worth keeping in. It's worth pointing out that he scored a goal, which obviously skews the stats a little bit. So the 7.03 is perhaps not particularly helpful in that sense. And my one possibility here is to put Collins there. But I think because I've done a couple of games like this, and because my right backs have struggled so much, I think I might start like this. But the other thing as well is that, for example, this kind of thing, I think my the fact that my assistant manager thinks that he is not such a good defender as he is a right back is probably not necessarily to be relied on, because if you look at his attributes, he's a good right back. Don't get me wrong, his marking's not great, but other than that, it's pretty good. But if you look at him as a centre back, he's also got the added jumping reach, which is quite important. I think the strength is far more important as a centre back, and that's a real strength. His bravery, again, probably more important as a centre back than as a right back. And the same applies to teamwork, because if you're a right back, you don't tend to be that close to much of your team all that often, particularly when we're on the attack. So I reckon actually he could end up being a centre back at some point in the future. For the moment, I'm going to leave it like this, for the reasons I've said before of consistency. And I'm going to try, for the time being, to pretty much leave the team as it is. I don't think there's anyone who's out of the team at the moment who I desperately need to have in this side. There are people who could perhaps get into this side. But the strikers certainly have been our best strikers overall this season. I had such high hopes for Joanne Smith, but he really hasn't quite come up with the goods. So he's going to be my option off the bench for the time being, along with Waterhouse, who, as I mentioned before, is back in here. And I think I may well bring him on today for mainly sentimental reasons, particularly if we are either winning or losing without long to go. So that was a bit of thinking in terms of what's been happening so far and my plans for the future. This season, as I say, I think promotion is probably gone. Not completely, and I'll obviously keep trying to win things. The Cups have also gone as well, of course, which means that our season could be almost over. I think certainly a win today would keep it just about alive. A defeat today, I think, probably does end it, and I might even then decide not to come back until the end of the season, because I don't really see the point in giving you a video when there's not really anything much to talk about other than, yeah, we're not going to get promoted, end of. But let's see. If we win this, it may be that we're not that far off, and things could be back on by the time I come back tomorrow. So here are the teams. We've got a nice aging right back. It's our first really old player that we've played, I think, since Lee Hendry. When I say really old, I mean anything over about 25, to be honest. I can't think of many players at all that we've had who've been older than that. We've got Akinola's 20, Hayhurst 19, I think, 22. I've got that bit wrong, but never mind. Gee is 20. They're all young 20s at most, and with the exception of, I think, Hendry, and there might be one or two others, most of my players have always been about that age, give or take a year or two. So here we go then. It's East Manchester at home to our Town. Let's see what we can do here.